Welcome to Distro Podcast.
All right, welcome to another episode of the Distro Podcast, brought to you by Distro.io, the better Upwork for long-term hires globally. We've got today, our guest is Pascal Weinberger with Bardeen. Pascal, how you doing?
Good, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Wonderful. Well, we're excited to get to know you today. Pascal, where are you located?
I'm between San Francisco and Zurich. We have more than half our team in Europe and then some core team in the US. So yeah,
that's quite the hybrid work environment for you. How often are you going back and forth?
Actually, every 2 months or so. A few weeks.
Not too bad. Not too bad. Well, awesome. Pascal, we'd love to get to know you. You, to my understanding, you're the CEO of Bardeen, correct?
Yes, exactly.
Very cool. Okay, yeah, share with us about yourself, like your background, as much as you'd like to. We'd love to get to know you a little bit.
Sure, yeah. So I started originally in neuroscience. I was fascinated with the idea of how the brain works, and that way kind of slipped into AI as a means of understanding these things called neural networks that back then very naively I thought would help understand how the brain works. But turns out they're very useful mathematical abstractions, but not much more than that. But kind of got stuck in there. I think neural networks, even back then, 10 years ago, were super useful for many, many different things, including computer vision. So kind of fell down the rabbit hole and ended up spending some time on various computer vision problems in different companies, including my first company. We were doing agriculture, basically quality control for agriculture using computer vision satellite data, and then helped build a team at Telefonica, which is when first time I kind of saw this problem of automation. We were big customers of big automation vendors, and I had an engineering background, so I thought it should be easy for me to use those automation products. And it turns out that it wasn't super easy to use them. And that's when I kind of started hacking my own little Chrome extensions together for things like hiring, sourcing, and outreach emails, and so on. And then, kind of over time, fell in love with this idea of process automation using AI, and then pitched it to a few friends, including Atem, my now co-founder, who turns out working on the exact same idea for himself. He was kind of automating his own. He was an engineering manager at a high-growth tech startup at that time, and he was trying to automate his own job, using various different scripts. And we were oh, there should be a platform that allows people like us, but also non-technical people, to build automations in a very easy, intuitive way for their everyday tasks that we all do and hate. We do every day, all the copy pasting between different SaaS tools. And that's how Bardeen was born about 4 years ago now. Built the first version of the product, learned a lot, especially on the user experience side of things. And this whole large language model wave has been very exciting for us, because back then when we started 4 years ago, LLMs weren't as much of a thing. We had heard about them from ex-colleagues of mine. And we had this idea of you should be able to describe what you want to do, what you want to automate in natural language, the same way you would describe it to an intern or your assistant. And then they usually, they understand it and they can go and do it for you. And the same way we wanted to build an automation tool that you can just describe what you want and it understands what you want to do and builds the automation for you. And that's now possible with Bardeen. So yeah, that's the high level of the story. And
yeah, no, that's so cool. Thanks for sharing that. And like most successful entrepreneurs, it sounds like from what you were saying, this isn't your first venture. This is you did another startup before, or more than one?
Yeah, I did 2 other companies before. One that worked, and then one that didn't work, where I learned a lot.
The journey is interesting.
Yeah, that's true.
So was the first one in
First one was agriculture. Yeah, first one was AgTech, using satellite data for disease detection in fields to help farmers manage their fields more effectively. That one was kind of acqui-hired. And then the second one, where I joined as a late-stage co-founder, was in quality control. So we were doing, we also built infrastructure, but we also were doing like quality control for manufacturing using computer vision, and then expanded to another product line in call center automation, which now is, super exciting with language models, but we were a little bit too far ahead of the time, I think, and we hired too fast, grew the team too fast, and the market just wasn't there, and there are many other things that went wrong, and learned a lot.
Yeah, interesting how timing can have such a place in the success or demise of a company, early stage. So, yeah.
It's very
sounds like you've learned a lot though, and now you're doing Bardeen. So did you start Bardeen with you mentioned your co-founder that was also trying to tackle a similar problem?
Yeah, Artem and I, we co-founded Bardeen together. Yes.
Very cool. And how did you get from Zurich to San Francisco? How did that all play out?
Actually, it's more the other way around. How I got from SF to Zurich, and the answer is COVID. Where back in 2020 when we started the company, I was actually in the US, and then traveling. I'm not a US citizen, so I have a German passport, and traveling at that time was really difficult because there were all these like entry restrictions, and you had to basically go through Mexico for 2 weeks to get back into the US. And then that plus the fact that we ended up hiring a lot of our engineering team in Europe, basically pushed me more to Europe, and so that's kind of like the vector was the other way around.
Yeah, that makes sense. So interesting. So tell us a little bit more about Bardeen. Like what is Bardeen? What's the problem that you guys are trying to solve?
Yeah, sure. As I mentioned before, so basically what we're trying to go after is like democratizing automation, right? Like I'm yet to meet a single person, I don't know about you, but like I'm yet to meet a single person that I talk to that says like, yes, I have nothing that I want to automate in my job. Like, I don't know, I'm sure you have things.
I'm not one of those people. I wish we could automate everything.
Yeah. So, but then usually the problem is people don't usually automate most of their job. But the people who do automate, they're usually very technical and they have some sort of engineering skills. Right? Like if you look at your typical engineer, they have tons of like command line interface tools like to automate like their testing and to automate their product development and to automate all their things. So like an engineer has they usually figured out like how to automate all the repetitive stuff in their job. But then you look at like sales, marketing, recruiting, product management, and like finance, like admin, a lot of these other roles, like they don't typically do that. You look over their shoulder and then like I don't know, but I know you work in the recruiting space, so this might sound familiar to you. That like you go from like whatever LinkedIn profile to some sort of database, like that is like an Airtable, Notion profile, CRM system, you name it, and you end up spending a lot of time copy pasting candidate information from whatever your data source, LinkedIn, GitHub, wherever you get your people from, into that data source, into that database, and then you end up writing like somewhat customized outreach emails, right? Like, hey, first name, here, like I saw you work at a company, I'm very interested in your skills in ABC, like I work in recruiting, blah blah blah, and set up a call, and that consumes a lot of time. So what you should be doing, and this kind of what Bardeen helps you with, is you can describe your workflow in natural language. So it's relatively easy to build those automations. And then from there, you can simply essentially generate an automation script that then kind of does the busy work for you. So like when I go recruiting now, like I'm on someone's LinkedIn profile and I click a button in Bardeen, and then Bardeen magically copy paste the relevant LinkedIn profile fields like, school, current company, email address, blah, 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 into, in our case, we use the Notion database for tracking, but can be anything, puts it into Notion and then like crafts my outreach email, puts it in my Gmail draft folder. So I spent like 20 minutes going through LinkedIn, like clicking the button on everyone that I like, And then now I have everything tracked in my Notion, and I go back into my Gmail in my draft folder, and I have like, 25 draft emails there that I just look at to make sure, it's AI generated. So we all know AI sometimes does funny things. I just look at the emails and I try to like make sure that they're all nice, and I hit send done. And that's really like what it be. And essentially our mission with Badin is to enable everyone in the workforce to build automations for all these repetitive things that they're doing. So yeah.
Well done. Love it. That is very cool. So what stage is the company at now? How many people do you guys have working with you? And I imagine you guys have some fundraising you've done. Where are things at for you guys today?
Yeah, sure. So we are just over 30 people. Fundraise wise, we have raised our Series A round, and then some, later strategic funding. Around 300,000 people on the platform. It still feels like day one, but we have built something already. But we're always trying to push it, make it easier, try to talk to all the users we have. We're just now launching like a business focused version of the product that previously we were targeting like the individual in the company to help them automate. Got to about 300,000 people on the platform like this. And now we're kind of pushing more like, okay, like you have a whole sales team. We have like 30 people doing the exact same job. They should all be sharing those automations amongst each other and like helping each other be more effective. And like that's kind of like the business version of our product now that we just launched 2-3 weeks ago, alongside the investment announcement with HubSpot and Dropbox investing as strategic partners. Really just like kind of pushing the boundaries.
That is so exciting. And honestly, I don't know if an entrepreneur is doing it right with the startup, unless it does feel like the first day every day, So, for how far you guys have come through COVID and over the last 4 years, it's impressive. It's exciting, and I think what you're doing, the timing is right. So that's really cool. Let's shift gears a little bit into the Distro podcast core topic of like hiring A players, hiring your key team members. What's been your experience? You've done this is your third venture now. What's been your experience in thus far in like finding and hiring the like core key team members to work with you?
That's a tough question. So I love to hire from network. Just like I'm, worked in the startup space now for like almost 10 years. So network's always the best, I think, because like, you kind of have this like extended trust network. Like they work with people that you already know. If they say like they're amazing, usually they are amazing. Like there's more kind of trust by default established. And for me, like working with people, especially in senior positions, it's all about trust. So that I think would be the first thing. Other than that, like we just hired a new head of go-to-market for us, we have a new leader. And that was an interesting process because like for both my co-founder and I were very technical. So for us to hire people in technical roles was much more natural, because we know what to look out for and we can, so to speak, like call bullshit on people,
Yeah.
In sales and marketing, it's much harder for us. So we ended up working with a recruiting firm for that who could help us do some of the filtering to make sure that like, people actually know what they're talking about. And kind of like expand the network a bit. But yeah, really, I don't think there's any secret sauce to it. For me, like hiring, as many other things in life, like are funnel problems. It's kind of like ultimately boils down to like you have some sort of like top of funnel. How do you get people into that top of funnel? As I just said, like big fan of automation, obviously. So I try to like use automation as much as I can to put people into this top of funnel that I source from, LinkedIn, GitHub for engineering, design resources for other roles and so on. And then it's about like how efficient you run your filtering process, kind of to put people through the funnel. And the interesting thing, I don't know, like I learned kind of as a founder CEO is like almost everything in life is a funnel problem. But like if you think about sales, fundraising, recruiting, dating, even like almost everything is like you kind of start with some top of funnel, and your success usually depends on the quality and quantity of people you put through top of funnel. And then you have your filtering process, right? Like in customers, it's like you qualify them, you pitch them, they see if like product's interesting, you demo it, you have some proof of concept, and they close. And in recruiting, it's, your top of funnel first call, like you see if the vibes are right, and you do, depending on the role, like technical diligence calls, other kind of diligence calls, and just kind of like put people through that funnel. I think like the two things I always try to think about is like, how do I get as many good quality people, candidates or sales leads or whatever in my top of funnel, and then how do I efficiently have a effective filtering algorithm as I put people through the funnel. And I think that's really what it boils down to. And
that's a really interesting it's an interesting like framework to operate by. I haven't heard someone talk about it that way. I mean, obviously there's like you said, there's components of looking at things as a funnel, and often in business that's how they are. They are funnels. But in terms of life and just in general, that's really interesting.
It might be a bit of a simplistic point of view sometimes, but I find in general having these kinds of frameworks really helps you to break down complexity, and you usually know like what to focus on and so on. So
I fully agree with that. That's a great way to look at it. So I gotta ask, have you ever had a key, like you brought on a key team member, you're excited, they were excited, however you went about finding them, maybe it was your network or maybe another method, but did you ever have a bad experience, where things didn't turn out so great, that, A player?
Yeah, I mean, many times. I think it's part of the learning experience, like I think like almost no one, I should say like probably no one, like I haven't met anyone who's like always right in life of everything. So like you will make mistakes. I think the things that I'm not super proud of is I sometimes tend to hold on to people too long. Like I always like give them a third and a fourth and a fifth chance. That's something that like what I'm trying to improve on. Like usually like people show their real face once, and then that's
why do you think that is? Like, and I think I don't think that's a negative thing in my point of view. I think that it's oftentimes it's for those types of reasons that we have co-founders and partners and other team members to help. But why do you think it is that at least for yourself you tend to hold on to people longer than maybe you should, or
I think it's a sunk cost fallacy sometimes, like where you think like, okay, like I invested so much time into like hiring them, onboarding them, training them, ramping them up, and then like you're like, this 1 more week, 1 more month, like but the problem is like, first of all, you have huge opportunity cost. Like you have someone in a seat and they're not doing a great job, like it means you don't have an outperformer in that seat, and then you don't get all the benefits of having an outperformer in that seat that like really drives the company forward. Plus it kind of almost establishes like a culture sometimes. But like if you seem to be okay with low performers and some roles, then it almost like creates this ripple effect through the company, and it's like, oh, but if like Andrew gets away with it, I should get away with it, and that's really, really dangerous. So you kind of have conversion to like the kind of like convergence to the lowest performing individual in the team, and that's something that's really dangerous. And I think that's that. Yeah, but ultimately it boils down to like some cost fallacy, I think, of why we tend to keep people for too long in general. But that's something I think every founder CEO that I'm talking to like has an issue with that, and I know everyone's working on that in their own way. So
yeah, I know you're not wrong. I find myself kind of playing on both sides of that, here and there, where sometimes maybe I hold on too long, and other times maybe I'm too quick. Maybe I pulled the trigger too fast. And so I think there's a good balance, and there's a learning experience every time, like you said. So, curious, I know you do, Bardeen does operate with this type of model with team members, because you mentioned it, but I'm curious to learn more. Do you guys do international hiring? I know you mentioned you've got engineers in Zurich, but yeah, like what does that look like? Do you guys try to focus more on, being in person for everything, having everyone together, or do you do, remote work, international hiring? What does that look like for you guys?
Yeah, I mean, so we're kind of, we started in COVID times, so we kind of had to start remote. Really wasn't much of a choice, to be honest. And then at some point, we had a critical mass in Europe and on the West Coast in San Francisco. So we have an office in San Francisco, we have an office in Hamburg, we have one in Yerevan. So we try to keep these clusters of people together. I think there's a huge benefit to being in the same room. And then for everyone else, we do like 3 to 4 offsites a year, where for like about 2 weeks, we bring everyone together in, some Airbnb or something somewhere. And we do all the like brainstorming and so on and then sometimes, people are really good at like just executing, when you're in your flow zone, no distractions, no coffee chats, no one running around tapping you on the shoulder, distracting you all the time. But it's really something you have to build into the culture. I think for us, it was a bit easier because we kind of started that way. So it's not that we had, from one day to the next change to a remote culture. And some companies that had to do that, they really struggled with it. I think by now, almost everyone either died, like company died, or they figured it out. We're huge fans of in person. So we try to do it as much as possible. And now, like when we do hire, we try to hire primarily in the clusters that we already have, and of create these, gravity centers.
That's so cool. That's an interesting outlook too, because COVID, you were kind of forced to figure that out, and that's how you started. And now from what it sounds like, you've got kind of a combination where your teams are distributed. You've got teams, spread between the US and Germany, and sounds like maybe some other spots. But you guys still make a strong effort to be together, to, do things in person, and there's no doubt that there's a lot of value in that too. Well, as we wrap up, I always like to finish with, having our guests give like a final advice or learning key takeaway from some of the learning experiences you've had. Is there anything that you feel, you'd like to share, learning experience maybe, or a lesson that you've learned as it pertains to, like hiring key people and building a good team?
I think big part of it is optimize for trust and high performers. I think I've seen people with very little experience in jobs like massively outperform people. People have amazing CVs, but they didn't have the right motivation or the right trust level. So I think that's maybe like one advice that I would share. And then the second one is trust your gut instinct. Ultimately, like most of the times in the beginning, you already know what you're going to do, like whether you're going to end up hiring someone or not. And then you either waste a lot of time looking for reasons to justify not hiring them or justify hiring them. Depends on the importance and impact of the role, right? Like you do have to do some due diligence, and I'm clearly not suggesting just like, oh, like someone on that first call, like, send them a contract. But I find that oftentimes, like I've spent too much time with candidates that after the first call, I knew I wasn't going to hire them. But then I was like, oh, maybe I didn't see something because they look great on CV or whatever. And that to me was always a huge time sink that I think, generally we can do better at. So yeah, I don't know if this helpful at all, but yeah, this would be two that jump to mind.
No, that's great. Thank you for sharing that. So yeah, thanks for listening in. Again, Distro.io sponsor this podcast, the Distro podcast, and we'll see you next time.